Is the new 2024 Player's Handbook for Dungeons and Dragons worth it? GameMasters here, and the too long didn't watch of this video is, yeah, it is. Hang out for a bit and we'll dive into why I ultimately came to that decision. When I was first asked that question, is this book worth it? I went back and forth with various yes and no views. I'm not a fan of the artwork. I'm not talking about the content or subject matter of the art. I'm talking about the size of the art. I'd much rather be given more information in a place of a full page or half page piece of artwork. I can appreciate art when it's there to help the message. For example, I do like the section on weapons where it shows what they look like. I'm okay with the various pieces that show what the different species look like. Elves, humans, and that whatnot. But let's actually take, for example, this page on halflings. We get a good portion of the page taken up by the artwork and a fair amount of blank space under that. With about, 4 paragraphs of information? I'd rather see more about the halflings themselves. I know. Art is worth 1,000 words, and I suppose we could create in our own minds additional information about them based on what is depicted in the artwork. I was also a touch hesitant about the changes made to the various spells. A lot of them changed the school that they were in. For example, Hallow, which we featured on the channel previously, used to be an evocation spell. Now it's an abjuration. The same thing happened with Cure Wounds. It was once an evocation spell and is also now an abjuration. But in the grand scheme of things, that change, it actually made sense. To me, anyway. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention that a big part of me didn't want to put anything into the yes, it's worth it column because of the company behind the product. I was hit pretty hard with the initial review of this book by Wizards of the Coast. Another reviewer was hit with a copyright strike. Nothing comes across as confusing worse than a company sending out review copies of something, and then the moment someone provides that review, slapping them down with a copyright strike. If I'm being completely honest, that was a pretty major blow that should never have happened. At that point, I decided that this was not going to be worth it for me to review on the channel. I didn't want to put my channel in jeopardy, and I really didn't want to have anything else to do with this book. In the intro of this video, I stated that the too long didn't watch of it was that this book was worth it. So, what changed my mind? Wizards of the Coast Creator Program was very apologetic, to me at least, and they were very respectful in communicating with me. I feel that this was a very new venture for them, as previously all of the review copies like this were handled through a public relations firm. I felt that my concerns were addressed, and I picked the book up again. As I moved through, I gotta tell you, the layout is fine. It flows very well from one chapter to the next. It literally spells out step by step how to create a character, which is excellent for new players. You can pick this book up without having any prior game play knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons. Go literally from the first page to the last page, from beginning to end, and have a good grasp of the game without having to crutch on your friends. I'd still recommend that. But this book was well put together in that regard. The ultimate push for me to say yes to asking if it's worth it was honestly the price on the back of the book. It has a manufacturer's retail price of $49.99, and that's in US dollars. So yes, if you live in another country, your mileage may vary. But consider this. 10 years ago, the Player's Handbook from 2014 was the same price, $50. This new book has a few more pages, probably because of the oversized artwork, and we know that costs have certainly gone up over the last 10 years. But for WotC to keep the same cost when they could have just as easily bumped it up by $10, possibly even more, well, it's a good marketing move, especially for an introductory core book. According to Wizards of the Coast's website, the Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual will also be priced at that same price, $49.99. So, considering that for $150 spent back in 2014, that I have had a literal endless supply of entertainment, and should I go out to, Burger King and get a double Whopper meal, that's going to cost me about $15 alone. And I'm not trying to compare food to entertainment, but in this instance, the cover price makes it well worth the cost. If you want to compare entertainment to entertainment, How many of you went to go see the Deadpool and Wolverine movie? Multiple times. Yeah, that could have easily bought you an unlimited amount of entertainment instead of the 2 hours and some change that you got. Spread that across 10 years. Well, I can't help but feel that that alone contributes to the yes, it's worth it viewpoint. I did a live stream that went on for a couple of hours a few nights ago where we asked this exact question. Is this book worth it? There I broke down some of the finer points between my yes and no list, but a big part of that stream went over how streamlined this book was. I mentioned a moment ago that it flows well. Things are easier to find. Things are presented in a very obvious way. Say that some folks out there say that that the classes in this version are stronger than when compared to their 2014 counterpart. Some actions have become bonus actions, allowing you to do multiple things during your turn, but there are other new things added into this 2024 version as well. One of them was initially on my no list. WotC added in weapon mastery, something that gives an extra oomph to your weapon's attack. For example, should you swing at an enemy with your greatsword and miss, you can use its graze property, which would allow you to instead deal damage equal to the ability modifier that you use to make that attack roll. Or, should you smack something with your warhammer, you can use its push property that allows you to push an enemy up to 10 feet away from you. Now, initially, weapon mastery was in my no list. I didn't like it. Purely as a DM, I did not like weapon mastery. It meant that I was going to have to keep up with a whole slew of new things for each character's weapons. Not only the ones that they already had equipped, but also for each weapon that they could potentially find while out adventuring. This was a big deal to me because as a DM, I already had enough to keep up with when crafting up encounters, and adventures for that matter. But then it clicked. I had that oh yeah moment. My monsters can have access to weapon mastery too. Hell, I could even homebrew some things for even the monsters that have built-in natural weapons. Things like claws and fangs. Many of the basic rules in 2024 have changed. Many have been altered a little bit. That would be the more appropriate thing to say. Many of the spells have changed, and I think that Ted over on Nerd Immersion is working on a comprehensive video that showcases exactly what's changed. I myself have covered a couple of spells, even checked out the spell Harm as it appeared back in 2nd edition, and went through each edition and showcased how Harm has evolved. And there are several more changes, some of which I'm really only just discovering. I know that I give WotC my fair share of crap, and it's mainly because of the passion that I feel for this game that we call Dungeons & Dragons. They could be and should be better stewards of it. I've been playing since the 1980s and have delved into every edition that there is. I'm not going to say that this 2024 version of 5th edition is any better than any edition that came before it, but I can say that for me, yes, it is worth it. I've had a lot of discussion about it with a wide variety of players, and I get that for many out there, they'll never be persuaded to open their wallets to Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast, and that's fine, I get that. I don't think anyone can say that WotC has made the best decisions over the past few years, but for me and my table, for the reasons mentioned, I think that this 2024 Player's Handbook is worth it. Given its 1/3 of the core rulebooks. We still don't know exactly what the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Monster Manual is going to have in store for us, but I can promise you this. Once I get my hands on those, I'll give them both as fair a review as I can. I want to thank everyone for watching today's video, and I especially want to thank my YouTube and Patreon supporters. Their contributions to the channel have made it so that I didn't need to take on a sponsored ad for today's video. And come on, we all skip those anyway, don't we? If you'd like to support the channel by becoming a YouTube or Patreon member, I'll leave a link down in the description, and also right down here below my little box where I'm talking. You can also join my Discord where we have a lot of fun conversation, not only about D&D, but also a variety of other games as well as non-game shenanigans. 2, if you'd like to help shape the future of this channel, Discord is a great place to do that, as I get a lot of ideas on what kind of videos to make next from folks like you. I'll leave a link to that down in the description as well. We've all seen many videos covering the various aspects of this 2024 Player's Handbook. Some folks are not pleased with certain parts, others are over the moon with all of what this book has to offer. But I'd like to know your answer to the question that prompted this very video. Is the new 2024 Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons worth it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and until next our paths cross, may your next purchase of $49.99 bring you at least 10 years worth of entertainment.